All right, you see the title, you see the thumbnail, go ahead and like and subscribe as you're coming in here. And these are gonna be 5 tips that you need to know, yes, just the tip of buying commercial property. So you'll definitely wanna go ahead and stay into the end. And let's jump right into it, is understanding the lingo. And this will allow you to do the 80-20 principle, because there's only 20% of actual knowledge that you really need to know of the lingo, that and the other 80% is just fluff. As an example is, what is the cash on cash? Meaning that if you invest, or let's say you put $10,000 down on a $100,000 property, and that first year you earn $1,000, that is a 10% cash on cash. Also, NOI. What is your net operating income? And that's your income, not include minus the operating expenses and not including your debt. So there's that. And then also your cap rate, because on the commercial side, that is how things are valued. It's completely different from residential. And you need to understand your NOI and your cap rate. So as an example is that if the NOI on a property is 30,000, you would divide that by 0.05, and now that is a value of the property or that asset of $600,000. So that's an example there. The second here, let me go ahead and put my notes up, is buying criteria. Is you gotta be zeroed in and know exactly what you're purchasing. That way you can be zero-like focus. And what this means is, let's say for myself, is purchasing in Indianapolis, Indiana, C assets that have been C-class assets in B neighborhoods that are built 1970, around the 1970 age, that have rents between $700 to $1,000, that are the unit size between 75 to 160 units. So you're very precise. That way, when you're communicating with brokers, if you're going on market, or let's say you're going off market and you're pulling lists, or you're doing the driving for dollars approach and looking for deals, is you're that focused versus having the shotgun approach and not having no set criteria from that, versus taking the sniper approach, and that way you're even more dialed in. And the next that we have here, which is very crucial, is a team. Most people don't realize they know the importance of this, but do they really know the importance of this? Is, yes, it is a team effort. And instead of trying to do it all on your own, that's why we have professionals for, such as when pulling comparables on a property to understand what you can offer on it, and you're trying to figure out, okay, what can I offer on this based upon recent sales? Instead of doing the research yourself, is you can ask an agent who already has all these transactions to be able to give you that knowledge. Same thing is that when you're under contract on a deal and you're doing the due diligence, is you can leverage your property management company. A lot of times that will actually help with that. So this is what I mean by the team, and finding people who you understand your strengths, and then putting people around you to complement your weaknesses. Because when it comes to the commercial spaces, there is a lot of moving parts involved with it, and one false move could end up putting you underwater. And I'll give an example of these investors that they bought a deal, but they did not take into consideration once the property, what they bought it for and what it was currently being assessed, is that the property taxes ended up going up because they purchased it at a higher purchase price, and then they didn't take that in consideration. That heavily ate into their cash flow. So that is a prime example, is that if you yourself are trying to do it all on your own, you're just more susceptible to overlooking something, which could end up costing you in the long run. And then the next tip that I would have for you is to go off market. Because this is a way that will give you the upper hand over the competition that is going on market. And myself and the investors I've worked with have saved millions of dollars going the off-market route, because once it hits on market, not only are you dealing with local buyers, you're dealing with buyers across the country, and actually now international. So there's just more demand. And the question is that if you're an investor looking for returns on a deal, how do you compete with someone who just wants to park their money, and returns aren't that much of a, they're not so concerned with the return. So how do you compete? I say you don't compete. So that's what the effort of taking the off-market approach. And then the next, and I'm gonna go ahead and give you guys a bonus tip since you've stayed this long, is you gotta have the funding. Where are you gonna get that from? Is that just starting out with your friends and family, so growing from that as a way to have a down payment for the property, and then also raise money for the renovations. Always be sure if the property needs work that you raise that money up front, because if you try and do it later, it just becomes an absolute mess. Or if the deal is too tight on the numbers and it doesn't make sense for you to raise for renovations and you believe you can take it out of cash flow, huge no. Ask me how I know, because I made that mistake. So that's on the way to get funding. And then also the lender is just nurturing those relationships. And the best way to get a lender is actually just to use who others use. And that's just getting yourself out there and networking with investors in the space, because that's the best referral that you can get. And that's how I ended up getting a referral, is just seeing what other investors use on their deals, because they're actively putting money out there to work in multifamily and commercial projects. And then the last but not least, with all this information, you guys, is you've gotta take action. And because I can share all this information with you and personal experience shares, but is what I've learned is you really just need to know 20% to be able to take action on that will actually give you 80% of the results, and the remaining 80% when it comes to the industry is good to know. It's not necessarily need to know. That's just my personal experience share. So I trust you guys were able to get some insights from those tips. Just a tip, no pun intended. If you're getting value from all this, go ahead and like, and then also subscribe, and go ahead and comment below with Mexico. Since I'm in Mexico, we'll go ahead and just go with that. So I appreciate y'all. See you next time. Thank you. All right.